Hello students, welcome all of you at AriserTalent. So we are back with our third chapter of the class 10th chemistry, that is metals and non-metals. And in this chapter today we are going to deal with a topic that is very basic topic, that is called corrosion. So before starting the topic corrosion, we will take a daily life example of the corrosion that we have generally observed is that sometimes we have seen that when iron is exposed to air or moisture, we will see that a brown colored or the red colored coating or rust is deposited on the surface of the iron. That in Hindi we usually called as a zung. So that zung is usually a rust, and in the chemistry it is known as the rusting of the iron. So corrosion is a basic phenomena in which the undesirable coating or the layer is deposited on the surface of any metal. So in our today's topic, we are going to deal with about the corrosion of the metals, alloying and amalgam. So our today's topic is corrosion. So corrosion is basically a process in which any surface when exposed to air or moisture or water in the atmosphere will make an undesirable compound, and that undesirable coating or compound is usually of that of the oxide. So what basically is corrosion is, it is usually the process of formation of undesirable layer of any compound that usually deteriorates the metal. So the metal will going to lose its properties and the complete chemical composition of that substance will going to change. So what are the basic conditions for the corrosion of any metal? The air, that is moisture, or the water is a compulsory factors that are required for the corrosion of any substance. So this is basically known as the corrosion of the metals, and the layer that is formed above the metal is usually of the oxide. So our second point of discussion here will be, it will form a layer that is usually of oxides. So the layer must be a layer of oxide. So the complete characteristic or the property of the metal get deteriorates. So now we will consider a process that is called rusting. So rusting of the iron is a basic phenomena in which the iron loses its property on reaction with moisture and water and form a brown colored flaky layer substance on the layer of the metal. So what is rusting of iron? Rusting of iron is a process in which iron reacts with moisture, that is air, and water to form the dark brown colored flaky layer. So this will be called the rusting of the iron, because in the presence of moisture and water, iron will get deposited with a layer of a dark brown colored substance, and this dark brown layer is usually called as a rust. So we may say that this dark brown flaky layer is known as rust, and this phenomena is basically known as rusting of iron. So usually the formula for rust will be iron third oxide, or we may say that ferric ferric 3 oxide, that is called Fe2O3.XH2O. So the basic formula for rust will be this will be the formula for rust. Rust is basically iron third oxide. Iron third oxide means its basic formula will be Fe2O3.XH2O. So its formula will be Fe2O3.XH2O. So this will be the basic formula for the formation of the rust in case of the iron. So here it is a formula for rust. So we have seen about the rusting of the iron and its basic formula. It means the surface of the iron get deposited with the, so we may say that the rusting of iron is basically a oxidation process in which there is a oxidation of the iron to form the flaky substance. So we can also say that this rusting of iron is basically the oxidation reaction. So it is all about the rusting of the iron and the corrosion of the metals. Now we are going to deal with the three main conditions that are necessary for the rusting of the iron. But before discussing that, if you want to copy it, please copy it from here. So now we are going to deal with the necessary conditions that are required for the process of the rusting. So what are the necessary conditions for rusting? First condition is there is a necessity for the moisture or air that is present in the atmosphere. The second most condition that is necessary for the process of rusting is the presence of water. And third category that will be needed for the rusting of the iron will be the metal is very reactive in its original form. So what are the conditions? First, presence of air, or we may say that the presence of moisture. Second, presence of water. And the third condition will be most reactive metal. So these are the three necessary conditions for the rusting of the iron to occur. So we have dealt with air, water and the reactivity of the substance in this topic. Now we will see the presence of all these compounds with the experimental setup and see how these conditions will be essential for the rusting of the iron. So we have taken the three basic conditions for the rusting of iron. Now we will see an experimental setup. So our next topic will be experiment to conclude rusting of iron. Now what we are going to do in this experiment is, now we will take a 3 test tubes, and in this 3 test tubes we will see the different conditions and put an iron nail in all the 3 test tubes. So what we have done here, we have taken 3 test tubes. This is test tube 1, This is test tube 2 and this is test tube 3. Now, in all these conditions, we have attached or fitted a cork. Now, in all the 3 containers of the test tube, we will have a dipped iron nail in all these containers. But the conditions here are, in the first case, we have taken a damp air, no other component apart from it, only damp air, and added some anhydrous calcium chloride to it. So, it will absorb the air from that damp air present. So, what we have done here, we put here damp air. And what we have done here, we have inserted an iron nail. This is our iron nail. And we have substituted some amount of anhydrous calcium chloride because it has a property of absorbing the moisture from the air. Now, what we have done here, we have put some anhydrous calcium chloride. Anhydrous calcium chloride. So, this will be the scenario in the test tube number 1. Now, we are proceeding to our test tube number 2. In this second test tube, we have put the boiled water and dipped iron nail in it. What we have done here, we have taken a boiled water. In this boiled water, we have dipped an iron nail. This is our iron nail, and apart from it, we have put a few drops of oil in this tube. Few drops of oil has been substituted in this test tube number 2 to prevent the air from entering in the test tube. So, what we have done here, we have put a layer of oil. This will be layer of oil. So, this will be the scenario in the test tube number 2. Now, we are going to test tube number 3. In this test tube, we have put only unboiled water and the 2/3 part of the iron nail is dipped in the solution. So, what we have done here, we have taken the unboiled water and this unboiled water we have put only 2/3 part of the iron nail dipped in the test tube. So, this is our iron nail. This will be our iron nail and the damp air already present in this test tube. So, we have taken the 3 test tube with the different conditions along with the different substitutes here. Now, I am writing here about the 3 constituents we have taken in the different test tubes, and we will see the observation after few minutes. We have 3 test tubes, that is test tube number 1, test tube 2 and test tube number 3. Now, in test tube number 1, we have taken a iron nail dipped in the damp air with some amount of anhydrous calcium chloride. I am again repeating, we have substituted the anhydrous calcium chloride so it will absorb the moisture from the air. So, in the first tube, what we have here is, we have substituted damp air plus anhydrous calcium chloride. This anhydrous calcium chloride is substituted to absorb moisture from the air. Now, what will be the scenario in test tube number 2? We have observed that in test tube number 2, we have taken a boiled water along with a layer of the oil. So what we have taken here, we have taken boiled water plus drops of oil. These drops of oil are added in the second test tube to prohibit the entrance of the damp air in the test tube. So, to stop damp air. Now, in the test tube number 3, we can easily see that we have taken only unboiled simple water along with the damp air. So, what we have taken in the test tube number 3? Unboiled water plus damp air that is already present in the tube. Now, this will be the complete experimental setup for all the 3 test tubes. Now, we will see that what are the conclusions after observing and substituting the iron nail inside all the 3 test tubes. We can see that in first test tube, no rusting of the iron nail will take place because the only necessary condition for rusting of iron will be the presence of air plus water together. So, we can see that in test tube number 1, there will be no rusting. Rusting will not going to occur because of the presence of only air. Because only air is present. In test tube number 2, we can easily see that there will be no rusting of the iron. So, rusting of iron will not take place only in the presence of water. So, in test tube number 2, we can see that no rusting will take place. No rusting will take place because in this test tube, only water is present. Now, we can analyze in the test tube number 3 that the rusting of the iron nail will going to take place because of the presence of both damp air and water. So, we can see that in test tube number 3, rusting take place and this rusting will take place because of the presence of air and water both. So, O2 and H2O both are present in the test tube number 3. So, we can see that for the rusting phenomena to occur, there is a compulsion that both moisture and water are present together. So, this will be the simple activity for understanding the rusting of the irons and the conditions necessary for the rusting of the irons. So, before proceeding to the next chapter, next topic, you can copy it from here. Now, until now we have discussed about the corrosion, rusting of an iron and an activity to understand the illustration of the rusting of the iron. Now, we will see the preventive measures to prevent a surface from corrosion. So, our next topic will be prevention from corrosion. So, preventing a surface from the corrosion, what are the basic steps we will take? Firstly, we will paint the surface, we will grease the surface, or we will provide a coating of the another material before the surface. Second step is by coating the surface with the more active metal, the prevention can be done. Third process will be alloying the metal. Alloying means changing the property of the metal so they can be further used for other purposes. And the last one is using the anti-rust solutions which will further stop the process of the rusting. So our first step will be by making a surface of metal to be paint or greased. So we will either paint the surface or grease the surface. So this will be the first step, to paint or grease the surface. Second step in the prevention from the corrosion will be by coating a surface with more active metal. What will be the benefit of coating the surface with the more active metal? If we coat the surface with the more active metal will start losing the electrons and the further corrosion will be stopped. So there is a necessary condition that it must be coated with the more active metal. General example of this will be the galvanization. Galvanization basically means coating the surface of the iron with a metal that is more active and usually known as the zinc. So what will be the process here? In this process, we have the basic method that is called galvanization. Galvanization is a process of coating zinc over the surface of the iron. So what is galvanization? It is coating of zinc over iron. Another method is known as coating of tin over the iron, and it is known as the tin coating. So next method will be, that is second method, coating of tin. It means layer of tin over iron. So these are the two basic methods for the coating of any surface. First is galvanization and second one is coating of tin. Now our third method that is used to prevent the rust from the surface is alloying of metal. Alloying of metal means combining a metal or non-metal, so that its criteria or its composition will be changed and further it will reduce the process of the rusting. So third method will be alloying. In the method of alloying, what we are going to do is we are combining iron with chromium and nickel and forming the stainless steel. This stainless steel is corrosion resistance. Steel utensils that we usually use in our kitchen does not get rust because it is basically an alloy. So what will happen in the case of alloying? We will use stainless steel. This stainless steel is formed by combining chromium and tin over iron. So an alloy is formed of, that is usually chromium and nickel. Chromium and nickel are basically used with the iron to form the stainless steel. So stainless steel is a basic alloy of iron, chromium and nickel, and this substance or this compound is basically a corrosion resistant. So this will be the corrosion resistant. Now Our last step for forming the substance rust free or the corrosion free will be using anti-rust solutions. Using anti-rust solution. Anti-rust solutions are basically alkaline phosphate solution which is used to prevent the rusting. Therefore, these are known as anti-rust solution. So, its basic example will be alkaline phosphate. So, we can see here we have the 4 basic steps in the process of the corrosion, in preventing the process of corrosion. First step we have learned about by making the surface or metal to be painted or greased. Second is by galvanizing the metal. Third step is by alloying the metal, and the fourth step will be by using any anti-rust solution to prevent the corrosion from a metal. So, in our today's lecture, we have dealt with the corrosion of the iron. In our further lecture, we will deal with the corrosion of aluminium, silver and other metals too. So, this lecture is over for today. Thank you so much and have a nice day.